All right, so this is a flaw question. And with flaw questions, I generally recommend trying to read the stimulus and determine the flaw for yourself, then look for a description of the flaw in the answer choices. Now, obviously, number 25, really complex. Did anybody have an idea of what the flaw might be in general? An idea? Yeah?
Assuming that yawning and the lost key, her keys are tiredness, when tired is actually necessary for, was it irritability? So there's kind of like confusion or unclearness of like whether that actually leads to that.
Yeah, awesome, exactly. So the question is tired necessary or sufficient, right? Exactly. So I think you've hit on something there with the conditionality of this question. There's also the question of how the yawning plays into this that I want to talk about too, because is yawning the same as tired or not? It's kind of debatable. So let's map it out. First they say Roberta's irritable only when she is tired. So only when is a necessary condition indicator. Whatever immediately follows the words only then will be your necessary. Then the other part of that sentence will be the sufficient. So we have irritable only when tired. Also we have she loses things only when she's tired. So I'll map that separately because each of those alone is sufficient to guarantee that she's tired. So that's all given as a general principle of sorts. Then we have the specific situation about this particular day. She's been yawning and she lost things. Almost certainly irritable. And I'll even include the almost just to be thorough there. Now, we have irritable as necessary here and sufficient up here. So we can definitely say that something has gone wrong here. Now, the lost things matches very nicely with this. The yawning is tricky, right? How does that map with the tired? I think actually I've given this a lot of thought in the past few weeks as I was discussing with a student, and I've decided that this yawning and tired thing, it's kind of a red herring because they want us to focus on the idea that these two things are not really the same, and they want us to think that that is the flaw, that they're equating tired with yawning in some way. Yawning may not have to do with tiredness. It could come from something else altogether. After all, we've all heard that yawning is contagious, right? It may not even relate to your own personal situation. But losing things, I think that is key because that matches perfectly here. So we have losing things requires tired, and losing things is then said to require irritability. Now we know from the evidence that losing things requires you to be tired. So when they say that someone's lost things here, they are really implicitly saying that the person is tired. So we can say losing things requires tired, requires irritability, is what they are actually saying here. It's just that this part is in parentheses. So Roberta, to this particular day, this is actually irrelevant. She lost things, therefore we know she's tired from the evidence, therefore the conclusion that she's irritable. But tired does not require irritable. Irritable requires tired. So this losing things part was all just intermediate. I want you to interpret the argument as irritable, then tired, as evidence, conclusion, tired, then irritable. That should really be your focus on this particular argument. Now the question is there a choice that relates directly to these conditions? All right, so the question then is there a choice that matches with this directly? Yeah, excellent, great. So it's confusing necessary and sufficient conditions. They told us as given, irritability requires you to be tired, then they're concluding tired requires someone to be irritable. They got it backwards. That's a mistaken reversal, a form of confusing necessary and sufficient conditions. So E matches that very well. E is, in fact, the answer. There's another choice that also mentions necessary and sufficient, but is not correct. D, right? D's talking about losing things. We don't have losing things anywhere here. That was only intermediate to tell us this. That's why that's out. The other choices, A, B, and C, I think are all kind of out of left field, talking about other flaws altogether. A is mentioning that yawning thing, which is irrelevant. To say, infers from a correlation between tiredness and yawning. They never had a correlation like that in the argument. They just mentioned yawning. B is referring to circular reasoning, which we don't have going on here. And C talks about generalizing from the single instance of Roberta, but there is no generalization going on in the argument to extrapolate to people in general. Tough question. Number 25, obviously. It's not really getting much tougher than that.